just simply because we were literally going from our teens to our early 20s. You know what I mean? And your sort of perspective changes and your mindset changes about the world and the universe, not just your band and the music. But so as the individuals changed, it inevitably changed the band dynamics and the band philosophies and everything. So all we started by just writing for the next record, and it became pretty clear within like maybe like two songs that no one in the band was interested in doing funky stuff anymore. But that never really crossed our mind as a problem to us. Like that was just like we just because we loved the Beatles and we loved Zeppelin and we loved Floyd and we loved anybody. And so most of our bands, it was very common to be like, you sound like this one day, you sound like this the other day. That was almost the recipe we were following. You know what I mean? We didn't want to just continue the same record over and over again. So when we started writing and we were like, okay, well, we just made a musical conscious choice to be like, let's drop D and get rid of our wah wah pedals for now and just sort of write riffs and that kind of thing, you know, like versus writing like grooves or, you know, whatever. So as we started writing, it just got like darker and Scott's lyrics got darker, the melodies got darker, his voice got heavier. Like there was just these things happening that was just a natural evolution, you know, for the band. Then at some point we met Arnold. That was a big thing for us because we were massive fans of Our Lady Peace's first record. And he had just had massive success with Clumsy. So there was like this like, holy, let's get together with him. And when he got together with us, he saw the potential in what we were trying to do and saw the value in leaving behind what we'd already done. And that was where we started. That was one of the things that we were really on the same page. You know, I mean, like we weren't sure what we were, because we hadn't written many, I don't know if we had written any finished songs before we started work with Arnold. But we had written riffs, we had half songs, you know, we had chunks and stuff. But he was because that's when we started writing with Arnold, like from day one. Like he was in the room whenever anything was written, right? So we just started writing. And then it changed, but it was going that way anyway. You know, if anything, I think Arnold probably saved it from being just heavy. He's probably the guy that probably said, you guys don't forget, you guys throw melodies in here. You know, because at the time Korn started to come out and there was just this massive change in like the type of aggression that people were putting into their rock music, you know. So so that was a big, you know, he was a massive on that record, obviously. You know, but then when we made the record, again, we were making it, we had become somewhat aware during the making of the record that we couldn't be calling it Rainbow Monkeys. But when we made that record, we kept everybody at bay. So the record label wasn't there during the making of it. The managers weren't there during the making of it. So no one knew what it sounded like. They were just going off Arnold's reputation and his word. So he was very good at getting on the phone, promising everybody what they wanted to hear, then coming back to us and us making the record we wanted to make. You know what I mean? And that's what we ended up doing. So, but as we were making it, we knew like this can't be called Butt Monkeys because it doesn't make sense. And we also realized that at this point in our career, like we're on to our second record, people know who the band is. We're like, if we want to do this for as long as we're hoping to do this, none of us want to be like 40-year-old Butt Monkeys. Like that was just we knew we were smart enough to know that in our 20s that like if this succeeds, that's not a good thing if we stick with this name, because eventually we're going to hate this name, and we don't hate it anymore because we just sort of stopped it in its tracks and said, okay, that was our high school band, that was our music we made. It all made total sense to us. But when we told our management and they told the label, they were like, this is not a good idea, guys. And we were like, well, it's happening. You know what I mean? Because it just, the band knew it had to happen. So then we pretty much made the bulk of TIP without a name, you know? Like we didn't know what we were going to be called. We just knew we weren't going to be called the Rainbow Monkeys anymore. And then when we played the president of the label, the record, and I'll never forget he quoted, like his quote was, "I don't hear any singles, but fuck it, let's put it out." because he thought it was good music, and it was a really cool thing. It was a really '90s thing to do, and it was very brave. And he just knew like none of these songs are going to get on Canadian radio because of what? Because again, like I was saying, like what was happening at Canadian radio wasn't heavy, right? So, but he let us put it out, and we put it out, and we didn't. I don't even know if we did a press release about the name change. Like we didn't. We couldn't have done it worse. The way we just transitioned. We just transitioned, and we didn't really tell anybody what we were doing. You know what I mean? And for years, there was people waiting for a second Rainbow Butt Monkey. They never knew, and I don't blame them because we never told them. It was like, oh yeah, by the way, that's us. We're over here now. We're doing this. So, but it made total sense to us. Yeah, it just did. And so when we put it out, that president retired about a week later. Mercury Polygram got bought by Universal. They said, we signed the Rainbow Butt Monkeys, not Finger 11. This music's never going to get on the radio in Canada. It's not selling any records. I just remember, like, they didn't drop us the option to take the record, which I thought was, they didn't have to do that. They could have shelved the record. So that was nice. But I'll never forget, we were rehearsing the new songs. And Scott got a call that the phone was for him at the rehearsal place. He came back in. He's like, guys, we just dropped. And we were like, holy shit. And I remember him, like, I started thinking, like, what are we going to do now? Like, what do we do now? And I remember him saying, like, I think this is when most bands break up. And we were like, well, we were all in agreement, like, we're not going to break up. We're just going to find out how to do this next, because it felt hopeless. Because at that point, we'd always been signed as long as we were a band. So we had forgot that it's our band and we're in charge of it. We felt like without the label, we can't do this. You know what I mean? And that wasn't the truth. And that was the biggest lesson we learned at a young age was, holy, this is only up to us. No one else. They all have their own agendas. They all have their own reason for wanting us to sell records or be popular. We have to have our own reason for wanting this band to succeed and wanting this band to be, heard by people. And that really, after that, was one of those things that just like really solidified the whole Finger 11 thing. And we never really looked back after that.
It's so crazy how so many things in the music industry can be out of your control. I mean, you guys had success with your first album. You record and release this amazing album. I mean, Tip is solid all the way through. I listen to it all the time. You have amazing songs like Above and Tip and Awake and Dreaming and all those. And then, the person that was excited about you at your record label leaves. That label gets bought out, and suddenly you have no cheerleader that's still there. That's vouching for you guys. It's so insane that all the things that have to fall into place for a band to be successful is unbelievable. So I mean, you went through that moment of getting dropped, and then you get picked up by Wind Up Records, so things work out. But when you look over the entirety of your career now, with how much success and this crazy single and this album platinum, and like having lived through that one moment that had nothing to do with you, where you get dropped and you don't know if you're going to stay together, does that help you now to see in the entirety of your career and your success how unlikely it is, despite how talented you guys were, despite how good the music was? It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it does, man. Well, I think one of the things that sort of concreted, or it forced us to live by what was sort of becoming our mantra, was like, and Arnold sort of taught us this. It's like, listen, you make the music that you think is good. If it's good enough, or if it's as good as you think, it might still take 20 years for people to appreciate it, but it will eventually be appreciated and remembered as good music. If you try and make a song to be popular tomorrow, it might be popular tomorrow, but will it be popular in 20 years? He sort of taught us this kind of philosophy that, like, you really got to get behind whatever you're doing, because you got to believe in it. If you don't believe in it, no one else is going to believe in it, right? So we really took that, and that's how we made Tip, with all that kind of like extra kind of, just doing exactly how we wanted to do it. And so when we got dropped, because we'd already adopted this mentality, we we knew or we were convinced that they were wrong. Like, we're not wrong. We made this awesome record. You're wrong for dropping us. Which, looking back, that's pretty arrogant for a bunch of young kids to have. But that was the fault. If we didn't feel that way, then we weren't believing in what we just created the way we thought we had just created. Like, that was the belief system. Now it was being put to the test. And it was like, okay, this is how we believe them. Let's go find someone to put this record up and screw these guys. Like, they'll regret this one day. And we actually heard from the guy that dropped us that later on in his career, he was sort of like, I don't think he stays up at night regretting it, but he acknowledged somewhere to someone that we know that it was a mistake, And that was a nice feeling too. But we already knew that because
you're the one that got away.
Honestly, if that guy came over to me today, I would probably get down on my knees and thank him, because if we had stayed stuck to that Mercury Canadian only release contract, we were probably stuck for 5 more records. We would never have had the success that if we had dropped and gone and got signed directly into the States. Like, that was the biggest game changer of our whole career. And we weren't allowed to get out of the contract. We were signed to them. So if they hadn't voluntarily dropped us, we would have been stuck in a thing that a lot of Canadian bands get stuck in, where you're not allowed to sign to the States now, but they're not going to market you in the States because our market is Canada. So
you're stuck in purgatory, which is
it happens, right? And so for us, we got freed from that by this guy not believing in us. So it was like, I don't know, it worked out great. I mean, because then we went directly from a situation where we didn't have any belief in the band other than the bandmates themselves to an entire community that not only believed in us, but like propped us up and cheered us on and like became friends and fans. And all of a sudden we had other bandmates that we all of a sudden had a scene that we had never been part of a scene before. And we had other bands that we were constantly touring with, and like all these, and the wind up, for whatever you think of the music, the bands that were successful at the time, you have Creed, you have Evanescence, and you have Seether, and these bands were all selling like crazy amounts of records. And I felt like every week we'd be invited to New York for another like double platinum party for Creed, and then next week it'd be like in Florida for another double platinum party for Evanescence. And we'd be constantly just partying with these people, selling. And eventually, when your label's that small, it has I remember hearing the story with Epitaph when Offspring started selling records. The money has to go somewhere, right? So it trickles down, and bands like our band at the time, who weren't selling many records, got tour support, got buses, got a real shot, because the community was so tight knit, and it was amazing. It was an amazing time. It was really cool, and again, if we hadn't got dropped from Mercury, we would never have experienced it. So
it's crazy how, when you look back on your life, some of the most heartbreaking moments that were devastating end up being a blessing, just like you've explained with that moment. So following the release of Tip, you guys began to audition for a new drummer, and I have a quote here I think you'll like. This is from someone that auditioned for Finger 11 during the Tip era. Are you ready for this?
Okay.
So this is from Neil Sanderson, the drummer from 3 Days Grace, multi-platinum mega band 3 Days Grace. This is what he has to say. I think you'll like this. Tell Rick that 3 Days Grace started as a Finger 11 ripoff band. I'm still pissed that they didn't pick me as their drummer after the tryout when they found out I was only 17. I drove all the way to Burlington with only a G1 license. I thought my life was over. Also tell him I still have no idea how he can have his guitar completely above his head and still sound in tune and heavy as fuck. I miss those dudes. 3 Days Grace, Neil Sanderson. I think things worked out for him as well, though.
Yeah, well, we've actually had a few jokes with Neil over the years, but okay, let me tell you what happened. So Neil, so we tried out about 30 drummers, I think, in that period, about 30, 35, and all we wanted was them to learn Tip. We didn't want to do Butt Monkeys. We didn't want to jam White Room. We just said, learn 3 of these songs off this record, any 3, come in and we'll play it, right? And I was blown away by how many people couldn't do it. If they got the parts correct, the groove wasn't there. You know what I mean? If they had a groove, they'd be constantly missing the shots or the timing, And Neil comes in and like nails it. You know, and he has that wicked open hand stance. So we were like, oh, this guy's awesome, right? He was 17, but that wasn't the factor of, I don't think, why. Because then Rich came in and he was another guy that nailed it. So Rich was left-handed. He nails it with energy. Neil's open, he nails with energy. Those were our two callbacks.
Wow.
Okay. Rich shows up on the day, and a guy named Neil shows up on the day with the wrong Neil. Our manager called the wrong Neil. And not only did we not get awesome Neil Sanderson to come back and decide out of these two awesome drummers who we're going to pick, the guy that they called back was like one of the worst guys. So he shows up and we're like, what are you doing here? You know, like we sort of even had like a bit of a conflict with him last time because he told us we were playing it wrong. And we were like, we're not playing it wrong, dude. Like we literally just wrote this music.
It's our song.
You got it wrong. You know, you're like, don't, like, what a weird thing to do. But anyways, so this guy shows up and we're like, oh man. And we're like, okay. And he's like, well, over here, I might as well sit up. And we're like, we know in our heads, like this guy is not going to get the gig, but he's not wrong. He drove all the way here. Like, all right, sit up. We go through half a song. We're like, okay, stop, buddy. This is not, you're not. And that was a big piss off because Neil was really, well, obviously the world knows now he's a special musician, special drummer. You know, we had no idea at the time what kind of writer he was, but he's just, you know, he's awesome, great dude. You know, Rich was there. Rich sits down and nails it again, like with bombastic, massive energy and just like, holy moly, this feels amazing. And it was just simply like, let's just call it that, man. Like that's the fate. That's just the world works. Like, I don't know why that happened, but this guy is here and he's awesome. And we like him. This guy's got the job. You know what I mean? And like you just said, and we've joked with Neil before, like he should be thanking us the way that we thank the Mercury guy. You know what I mean?
It does feel like fate now, actually, with everything he's accomplished. I mean?
It's incredible because look where he ended up, and it's cool. And you know they are they've never been shy asked about the influence of the band on their early records for sure. Like they, you know, that's sort of like a best known secret, you know, amongst us. But like that's a compliment. And I mean, like I think about that all the time because if you think about it, because we get people saying it to us like in a snarky, right? And we're like, man, we were never going to make another Greatest of Blue Skies. Like we never were. We're never are. It's just not. I don't even know how you would do that if you wanted to. But they took that record and evolved it into a different sound, and I think that's the coolest thing. Like that's such a compliment to our band, and it's great for the fans who love that genre of music, you know. And they were never going to get it from us. So to me, it's sort of like a perfect kind of world. And now they're obviously, that was the early 3 Days Grace. Now like 3 Days Grace is their own massive entity. You know, they're like you can hear them a mile away when you put the radio on. Like you know who it is, and it's awesome. Like I love those guys.
You know what's funny is I actually edited the end of his quote because I didn't know what he was talking about, and he actually said they called the wrong Neil in his quote, yeah. And I just didn't know what that meant. So, right. So I kept it out. But he actually said they called the wrong Neil. So he's aware.
Yeah, that was it. The age, I remember having a conversation about his age, but thinking, well, we can work around that. You know what I mean? But it was the reason. The real reason was because they called the wrong Neil, and Rich was there, and we were tired of looking for drummers. It had been about a month, you know, and it was just like, okay. But Rich also, I mean, come on, he came in and, you know,
killed it.
Killed it, yeah.
When I was 14, I went to Canadian Music Week in Toronto, and I saw Mudvayne, who are all crazy musicians. I saw Mudvayne. I think it was at Cool House, which I don't believe exists anymore. But and this unknown 3-piece band, these young guys opened, and it was 3 Days Grace, and it was just a few months before I Hate Everything About You came out, and you know, platinum, all that stuff. So I saw them super young. I got to see Neil do his thing, come into his element. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, I mean, they were going for like I remember meeting them when they were young, like, you know, right after Neil had started it up, you know. So I mean, I couldn't be happy for those guys. They deserve it. They work hard and they are talented and they write great songs, and they just deserve all the success that they have.
So he mentioned, he has no idea how you have your guitar over your head, you're throwing it around your neck, and yet it sounds like you're just there playing the guitar normally. So I wanted to know, because I've seen you do it in person. What's the trick? How do you do such crazy things with the guitar and not miss anything? Are you landing in like the pauses in the music? How does that work? I mean, a magician shouldn't give his magic away, but I'm allowed to ask.
You know what? No, yeah. I mean, I don't mind talking about it. It's like, I don't really have an answer, only simply because I think my biggest thing is not thinking about it. It's the best way I can describe it. Like it evolved from a couple of things. I grew up learning to play the guitar, watching Jimi Hendrix VHS tapes, right? So I'd be watching him and I'd be mimicking his fingers, but obviously I'm watching live on Monterey and he's playing behind his head and he's playing between his legs. And so from like that second I put a guitar on my body, I always loved guitar theatrics, I've always loved that. But it's not, you can't do it with the first time you play guitar. So it takes some time, but then we were just, a lot of it has, and then I also as a young guy, I love skateboarding. I was a skater when I was a teenager. So there's a bit of that too, that feeling of like starting a trick and pulling it off. There's a bit of that I loved as a skater, that feeling of like, there's a moment of starting it and then there's a moment of landing it. And that was that, I love that feeling. So we played so many shows that just over the years and years and years and years and years of playing, it evolved into many different things. And obviously seeing other artists was, I remember, I'll never forget seeing the guy Yannick from Iron Maiden. And he was the first, I'd seen guys do like the guitar spin, but it was always, like you said, in a break. It was always like, da 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 da. Da, 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 and he was the first guy I ever saw hit an open D and do it. Like he hit the open D and he spun it and it rang out and he caught it. And I was like, that's amazing. Like that's entertaining, because that you can make sense of the other parlor trick. This one was like, what? He's playing and he's spinning, like, but he's picking the right moments. So that became a thing for me. The guitar spinning was fun, and I found it, the physics of it it's sort of like a hula hoop. Like, it's just a matter of conviction. It's more every guitar, the weight distribution of the guitar has to stand still and it'll go and do its thing, just catch it, right? But like an SG where all the weights at the top of the headstock, that ain't gonna spin around your body. That's just the middle's gonna stay here and the headstock's just gonna swing around like this. And I know that because I tried it on stage before. Like, that's the other thing. I've never tried any of this stuff in my garage or by myself. Like, I don't practice throwing my guitar around.
You'd have a lot of broken stuff in your man cave there.
And I would just feel stupid. I probably wouldn't do it if this was something, because that would go into like the thinking about it. That means like, I think it's cool and I think it's something that I should do right. And really what it is my own version of expression. And like I said, like that feeling of skateboarding and pulling off tricks. And the reason I play in tune and on time is because the other guys wouldn't allow it to not be that. Do you know what I mean? Like if I was throwing my guitar around and it looked cool, but it sounded like shit, those guys would be like, stop throwing your guitar around. Do you know what I mean? Like, of course they would. I would be like that too. I'd be like, it might be fun to do, but it's ruining the musical experience, So there was sort of that pressure on myself always. Like, if I'm going to do this ridiculousness, then it's still got to sound good, And then over the years, it just evolved. And now I do things that, like, a lot of times the things I do happen by accident once, and I continued to do it. That's really how a lot of it evolved into one. Like that thing where I hold up the guitar with one hand, that was because my strap came up. And then once I sort of, my brain was like, oh, you can do this. Well, that means you can do it all the time. You know what I mean? Muscle memory and stuff. So that's sort of how it evolved. But I'm glad it's fun to watch, because it's a lot of fun to do. When I see myself doing it, I don't like to see it. It's just like I'm like, I don't know if I would enjoy another guy doing that. I don't know if I think that's cool, you know. But when I'm on stage, I don't think about that stuff. It just comes out. It just happens. You know, but when I do think about it, I mess it up. Guaranteed. I'll guarantee you. If I do think about like, even if I think, are you gonna do that this time? I'll mess it up and I won't do it because that means I already thought too much about it. That means it's gonna. My conscience is thinking that it's just a matter of going with the flow. And the other thing too, I don't know if this is the case for everybody, but for me, time on stage moves at like a crawl. So I feel like I'm constantly the world's in slow motion and I'm in real time. So that's good when I'm trying to perform, but it's hell when I'm for anxiety. So a lot of times, a lot of this performance side of it came from a desire to like entertain myself, keep myself busy, so I'm not thinking about what I'm actually doing in life right now in front of all these people. You know what I mean? So the key for me is to not think about what I'm doing, and that's my way of distracting myself, I guess.
Your secret is you have a superpower where you go into bullet mode from the Max Payne games, or you go into the Matrix, and you're seeing time move slow.
And you know what? There's some yes, you're absolutely right. Like that's what it feels like in my mind. And I think one of the hardest things about being either a performer or a live musician is that nothing else in the world gives me that feeling. There's nowhere else in the world I can go to get that feeling. So if I don't get on stage, like I haven't for 2 years in the pandemic, my brain is like, I don't get that Zen moment that no matter what else I do, I can't find that real true Zen moment that I get on stage. And so when I am on stage, that is a real, that thing, the zone or whatever you call it, that thing you're sort of searching for in your day-to-day life. I do find it when I'm on stage, and that's what I choose to do with it from a guitar.